Welcome, everyone. We apologize for slight delay. We are waiting on some folks to join us for the podcast. We're going to be going over an interview that the Phantom Dust Revived community has had with Yukio Futatsugi over the past few weeks. We sent him some questions via text, and after some translators got involved, as he does not speak English to a sufficient level to do a full English interview, he was able to answer the questions and then have them retranslated back to English for us, which is a big thank you to whoever his translation team is out there where he's currently working. We have those questions. We'll show them probably a little bit later in the interview, so you'll be able to, just skip through the video if you just want to read them, or we'll also try and attach them in either the comments or under the description of the video, so you should be able to find them there as well. If you're just interested in the text. But more or less what we're going to be doing here is discussing some of the answers, possibly all of them. We'll read them and talk about some of the answers he's given us to various questions that we as a community had for him. So it's been a great honor. We are super thankful that Yukio was willing to do this with us. And I have here with me today for this venture, I have Murder.
Hello.
And we also have Sandal.
Hello.
And so I guess obviously the big question was the first one. The first question was basically just about the sequel. What can we do to make a sequel, and what are the chances of it? So let's talk about that answer. We'll go ahead and read his answer out loud first, and then maybe we'll discuss some stuff we used Google Translate afterwards. So why don't you go ahead and take that part away, Murder? You said you wanted to do the reading.
Yeah, so Yukio's response. I think the reason a sequel has not been made is because there is a debate among enthusiasts regarding the gameplay. On the other hand, it was because of the passionate fans who are enthusiasts that the Win version was remade. Since the core fans continue to play the game, as the creators, we would like to create a sequel to this title if the opportunity arises and we have the energy to do so. At some point, I would like to make a sequel, not just a remake. If we make a sequel, I would like to make it easier to play and lower the hurdle for experiencing how fun and interesting it is. Of course, the captivating elements would be left in.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit in there. He almost answers multiple questions.
One thing I gathered from it is, this may be me reading into it. It sounds like he is. This is gonna sound like an insult, but it's not meant to be. He's afraid to make a sequel because of how well received the first one was, and how he still has players to this day who still play it. Obviously, you see games where they make a sequel and it was so loved. The first one was so loved, but the sequel gets trashed. And I don't think that's something he wants to do. He wants to make sure it's a game that is still well received by people who still play it 15 years later.
Before we jump into the rest of the answer there, what do you think of that, Sandal?
I think some of the design of the game is kind of difficult to reconcile. Some of the more controversial aspects, like environmental hanging, how you rebalance the environmentals. That's one thing I'm sure is on his mind. I think one of the most difficult things to do in designing Phantom Dust is deciding how easy or how accurate moves are. I think that is one of the most difficult things that a developer would have to reconcile. I think making a new Phantom Dust type game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a daunting thing. And one thing you kind of touched on there talking that I wanted to bring up was actually we ran some of these through Google Translate just to see if it would maybe shed a little bit of light, because with translation there's always going to be a bit of context and meaning lost through it. And I remember when you ran this one, or actually I ran this one through Google Translate, and or did you run it and then copy paste it?
Yeah, I think I ran it and copy pasted it.
Yeah, well, like it almost sounded like based on that he was saying, I don't know if a sequel can happen because of how controversial the gameplay is. And he was it kind of sounded like he was talking about like at an executive level, like bigger decision makers always looking for the next big game format. Like we had all the battle royale type games come out recently, got really hot, and suddenly there were lots and lots of battle royale type games. And I think that's what he's indicating here, is that it's been hard to get people on board that this is the next kind of game type that needs to be made. That was at least what I thought he was trying to get at there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's hard to really describe this game to people. I know in our Discord server, member Carlo, he says that when he tries to explain Phantom Dust, he uses that Pepe Silvio meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And basically, it's like a picture of a guy who looks kind of insane, pointing at a bunch of different things, trying to connect the game, and it's just like it is hard to describe this game to people, and I'm sure that hurts getting it picked up.
Just say there is a battle royale mode, but don't specify. There is a battle royale mode, so sold.
Something I was thinking about, when you play the game, like let's say new players come on, they enter a battle royale room, and they have 0 aura in the beginning, and they just keep picking up capsules. They don't know how to use them. Maybe something like aura automatically activating and quick mode would enable people to use moves more, because sometimes I've just seen new players come in a room and they keep picking up the capsules and they're not using their aura and they're not doing anything, and that's all they have to work with.
Yeah, some kind of like maybe even on-screen like hints, like if you're holding an R particle, it's like press A again or something like that. And that's something he's indicated there, is that like we've said, that those hurdles to that gameplay is something he really wants to tackle to make it easier for people to get into. And I think that would be definitely an important point to a sequel if we wanted something to be successful.
Maybe like a, I don't know. I like the idea of just a mode where you go in and it literally just walks you through what to do. Like, use an aura particle. Press this button to attack. I think something that simple would help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could be done.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, Bregan, can you post a link to your channel, to your cast, please? Okay. In the LFG chat for people. And Jay just joined.
Okay. Let me find the LFG chat. Does anybody have anything else they want to touch on in his answer to that one? That one's one of the meatier ones. I guess just what is your take on his thoughts of the possibility of a sequel? Like, did it sound positive to you?
In my opinion, no. It did not.
I think there's a bit of a mixed optimism there, but he does say how difficult it really is to just try and get this game going again in a sequel.
Start a GoFundMe, Yukio. We got your back.
All 12 of us. We can we can all afford $5.
All right, that's $60. There you go.
We got like nobody affluent in our community. We're all poor. I think Math might be the richest of us by virtue of being a homeowner.
All right, Math, fund the game. Go.
Do it. All right, so let's go on to the next one then. If nobody else has anything else they really want to touch on there. Is Jay in here now?
He's in, but I don't know if he can hear us and stuff. His mic thing's not moving. He's not making any sound.
We'll let him sort that out then. And if he has anything he wants to add to question number 1, we'll come back to him.
Okay.
So question number 2 was one that I had come up with for my own curiosity. We asked if he'd seen any of our tournaments and if anything about that had surprised him. It was actually kind of cool to know that he has seen it. What he wrote there is, I see when it is occasionally posted on the Facebook timeline and I'm impressed by the variety of things that are researched. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. I didn't obviously expect him to be an avid watcher, like an esport fan of it, but it is kind of nice to know that he's watched a few and he's aware of it. He knows that we're still doing regular tournaments and that he tunes in every now and then.
Yeah, that is cool to know.
I think it's cool that having such a niche community like this, we still have something that's like, we got our own announcers casting these matches, and it's not something you always see with certain niche games out there. And I think it speaks to the quality of the game.
Well, we know that not just him, but we know that Adam Icegreen also pretty regularly watches our stuff. He's actually been very supportive of the tournaments, and he'll occasionally even retweet or I've seen him like several of them as well. I think he has a couple favorite players that whenever he sees them have a match, he'll go and watch.
That's what we should have asked.
Well, I don't know if Yukio does. I know Adam does, but I don't know about Yukio.
We still should have asked.
He's going to say his favorite player is Venom Blitz. His alternate tag. That's a joke, people. It's not real.
My favorite Venom Blitz matches are the ones where he played me. All right, let's move on to number 3. Why don't you take that one away, Murder?
Want me to read the question and the answer this time?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a skill that made you frustrated to play against it as a player? Did you have a favorite skill? What about a favorite skill concept that did not quite make it into the game? His response, which Ailes and Kamikaze are going to love. My favorite skills are Remote Bomb, Sensor Bomb, or, mine, and trying to turn the table on my opponents using X-type skills. What frustrated me when playing was not being able to move freely during Confused Gravity when the opponent used Warp-type skills, for moving both escape from and attack me. It was interesting because even though I had not thought about using it in that way, we made a prototype during the initial 5 months of development, and at that stage there were 50 operational skills, and we later completed a list of 300 skills. Naturally, during development, there were skills that were eliminated and those that were added, but most of the skills that we wanted at the beginning were included. I like the skills that inhibit the opponent, so I wanted to include many elimination type skills. I'm assuming that means a race. But this hurts the action tempo, so in the end, we made it as the game currently stands. End quote.
Oh, wow, that was fancy with the end quote at the end.
I just wasn't sure if you guys knew I was done, so.
Well, the way you get fancier is if you go close quote.
All right, next time there's more questions, I can do it.
Fancy. All right, so one of the things we, because some of these, again, we have to kind of like parse through and try and make sure we're catching the right meaning. So the trying to turn the table on opponents using X-type skills, we talked a little bit about that in the chat. My take on that was that he meant he likes finding counters to certain specific skills. So like a Y counters to X. Did anybody else see that differently, or?
I
can't
kind of
see it in
agree.
any other way. Yeah.
The only way I looked at it was like maybe X skills, like key palm, but I think your interpretation makes a lot more sense to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically what I was getting from this is that and it's something you do see pretty heavily in the game, is that almost every skill has some sort of nearly direct counter or, ways that you can shut down certain strategies. Bravery decision has
Violent
to
change.
cower in fear of violent change, for example. And that's something that he really enjoyed, and so that's something that's heavily reflected in the game. It's also interesting to see that pretty much there's another question a little further down, but we'll get to it as we go. But with some of his answer in that question and some of what he says here, my take was that they were pretty happy with what they built. Because I think we asked later down, was there anything you wanted to do with Phantom Dust that you were limited on and didn't have the ability to do? And the way he's put it is basically, if there was a skill we wanted, it made it in the game, and the technology, given the tech we had at the time, we did everything we wanted to, and we worked very ambitiously with the technology we had available. So it doesn't sound like there was a whole lot that didn't make it into the game that he wanted into the game.
That's surprising. Just because there could be so much added to it. Like people come up with skills all the time, so I couldn't like if I were to develop this game and you told me you can only have 300 skills, well, I probably could come up with a list of like 500. Like you want me to narrow this down to 300? So that's impressive.
Oh, well, I mean, to start out, like, if you start with nothing, I think 300 ends up being quite a lot. You can always add more later, and he does indicate a little further down, again, we'll get to the subsequent questions, but one of those answers later was that he wanted to add more content to the game, and he was hoping to continually add to the game, and that was something he didn't get a chance to do. But as far as for the game launching, there wasn't anything where he felt limited on like time, budget, or anything like that. He was happy with what they put out. There wasn't anything where he was like, we really wanted to do X, but we weren't able to accomplish that.
Right.
It also might speak to like some of the balance changes made from the original. When Phantom Dust first came out, Calamity was a skill that automatically erased all skills.
The good old days.
Now it's a hole that you have to dodge, and
no one uses.
I think that kind of speaks to him reducing some of that erase inhibition kind of moves he was talking about there.
Do you remember how popular those skills were when the game first came out? Though Calamity and Disintegrate were just like everywhere.
I got a funny story about that. It's actually from the brief period of time where I played X-Link Kai. Before the remake and after Phantom Dust had died, I did it for like 6 months, and I played it with Guinan. And due to the weirdness with it, I had it patched, so I had the current patch, but he had an unpatched version. And we were still able to play together, which made for all sorts of wacky inconsistencies. And he kept using skills like Fortress of Iron and Psycho Sniper that hadn't been nerfed yet. And so it was still block for 8 for him, for example. And I told him to quit abusing those skills because it was driving me batty that he was abusing these skills that hadn't been nerfed. And he wouldn't do it. And so I decided to get revenge, and I just made a Disintegrate Calamity deck with 3 of each and like relearns.
So you would dodge it.
I could jump the hole.
Oh
he
my
couldn't.
god, dude!
Yeah, for him, he just lost everything. For me, I could just jump the hole.
That is amazing.
There was no hole for him.
Oh, that is great.
Immediate effect. It made him so mad, he basically ended up like rage quitting for the night. Absolutely hilarious.
Give us one moment. We just lost Sandal.
Yeah.
He just left.
So
but while he's gone,
I was gonna say that's one of my fondest memories of Phantom Dust. Actually, was
that is amazing.
Getting to do that. And I've got a lot of fond Phantom Dust memories, but that one's definitely up there.
So one thing Yukio says here, he says, one thing that frustrates him is when the opponent uses warp type skills. I'm assuming that means like dash and lightning speed. That's the only thing I can assume warp type means, like special.
I think he's also talking about like charge and retreat and stuff like that as well.
Right, yeah. That's what I would assume too. Just skills that move you around. But he said it was interesting because even I had not thought about that in that way. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
people thinking outside the box.
And then it's also just interesting to see how many of the unintended things happened. Obviously, that first patch had to come through. But like, so, you know, the environmental hanging or sword canceling, like all these little things that have made it through that weren't something that they designed it to do in the first place, because it's just such a robust game with so many different things that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We got you back. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on there, Sandal? I know you missed a part. Yeah, can you hear us?
The fuck?
I was just sharing my story about how I abused Guinan. Now. But I guess he can't hear us. Well, we'll keep going while he sorts that out. We'll head to the next one. Let's see. All right. I got to refresh myself. Why don't you go ahead and read it for us?
All right. Question: what inspired you to create Phantom Dust story? Can you give us a tease about what kind of story a sequel would have? Yukio's response: when I was creating this game, I thought about the concept of creating a game that would be played for 10 years by continuing to add skills, correct the rules, and upgraded versions. Unfortunately, I was not able to continue upgrading the versions, so I am both surprised and grateful there is a community that continues playing the game. It sounds like our question kind of got lost in translation there to him.
A little bit. It might have got lost in translation, and he kind of continues talking about the same topic over the next couple. So we'll just kind of read those as we go, and then we'll talk about them all as a whole. So
Okay.
we continue by asking him, do you expect this community to last this long? And then you go ahead and read the response.
Yeah. Did you ever think this community would have? Did you ever think this game would have a community 15 years later? As I mentioned above, that would be updating the rules and versions and adding skills. I also wanted to be able to move the animated characters more naturally, but that was the best we could do at the time. And it's cool he said that because when you watch like the little gameplay footage they had for the sequel originally, you notice the characters move a lot different than this original one. Like there was ragdoll physics in the trailer or in the sequel gameplay video.
Yeah, that
I
would be
thought that was
pretty
really
fun to
weird.
see if they had more realistic physics like that going forward.
It would really, I don't know. I feel like that'd be really difficult. So like you throw a hyper Kai bullet at them, you know they're just gonna fall normal and you backdraft bullet them. So if there's ragdoll physics, they're just gonna go fucking. You don't know where they're gonna go, right?
I think there's some hitbox stuff you could work with that, because I feel like Phantom Dust, as it currently is, like the character model's hitbox is really close to the character. If there's anything in the way of the character at all, it'll miss. Whereas a lot of other times in games, the character hitbox is outside of the character model a little bit. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd almost be like a circle around the character is what you have to hit.
No, what I mean is like when the character goes to fall, you already know where the character is gonna fall right now because you
Yeah.
just fall on the ground. But if there was ragdoll physics, they go fucking bouncing into outer space.
I mean, that's a trade-off I'll take.
It would be
Honestly.
funny. It would make a
I mean, it's
killing your
already pretty
opponents much more
hilarious to Kai
satisfying.
bullet people on Refinery and just watch them go flying who knows where.
Hey, do you want me to read the next one, or is that the one that's part of that?
Yeah, go ahead and read the next one too.
All right. What's something you wanted to do with Phantom Dust that budget or time or technology has prevented? Okay, I'll just read it the way he read it because I don't understand what it meant. But those things were details. Microsoft provided us with an ample development budget that enabled us to engage in what at the time were ambitious challenges, and for that I am very grateful.
Yeah, so it's almost like he's still answering the first question and just kind of continuing to answer it in the subsequent questions for a few bits there. So if you kind of read them together, let me see if I can get all three of them in one screen. There we go. Oh no, why would you do that to me? Come on, scroll up just a bit.
I do like where he said his idea was to continually upgrade the game for years. He said that for years, 10 years. So when he creating this game, he wanted there to be a community still, because he still wanted people to play. It's a card game, and for anyone who plays card games, it gets updated every 6 months. It changes, and it sounds like that's what he was trying to do with Phantom Dust. So that would have been awesome. I wish he got to do that.
Yeah, it would have been really cool to continue to see updates and see the eventual nerfs that certain things like reincarnation and vibration laser probably would have been hit. Ice Sword is another. Fortress of Iron probably would have been hit again.
Don't talk about my Fortress of Iron like that. Stop it.
Got to get rid of that shield meta.
Stop it.
Got all these kids who think they're good because they bring a lot of blues. Oh.
Ouch.
That's right. All right. It was pretty cool. And like I said earlier, I think it's also interesting to note that, like he said down there, that Microsoft gave them the budget they needed, and there wasn't really anything that they felt like that they didn't squeeze in that they wanted to squeeze in. And it's also worth remembering that this game we're still playing that still feels fairly modern was made in 2005, or 2003. Right. Like, at the time, it was absolutely incredibly ambitious as far as game type and how everything ended up running.
I mean, to this day, I still can't think of another game. I think one reason it holds up so well 15 years later is because you can't name another game that is similar to it. So there's nothing else to compare it to.
Yeah, it's true. There's never really been even a spiritual successor of any kind. There's no
Yeah,
online battle. Like, honestly, the closest might be like some of those MOBAs, like League of Legends and stuff
yeah,
like that. But
yeah.
even that's still, it's
Way
a
different.
completely different ballpark.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool.
All right, we'll get down. He talks a little bit more about sequel again. We asked what changes to the multiplayer would he make with a sequel. If you want to read the answer.
He said there are various ideas, but I'll keep them secret for now. I will say, however, that I want to use a system that is easier to play to make multiplayer fun and for both new and core users.
You both mentioned this a little bit before. What are some ways that you think that he'd be able to accomplish that?
I personally really like the high learning curve. I mean, I fell in love with the game instantly when I played it, back when I was 16 years old. Um, but I also just like games with a high learning curve like that, where you can be okay at it, or if you spend a little more time and get really good at it. Just like Super Smash Brothers, where you can play it and have fun, but if you play against someone who's been doing it for a while, you're just gonna get stomped on. And I like that about Phantom Dust as well, where you can pick it up and play. So there's a little bit of that initial learning curve, but then you can get well enough to play, but then dive into the more competitive, higher tier scene. And I guess what I'm trying to say here, while rambling, is just that I like the way it is.
So
I
the
think
soundbite I'm taking away from that is "suck it, noobs."
Yeah, kind of. No, I enjoy that, and I wouldn't want to take anything from that. I can't think of a way where you keep the high level of competitive play, but at the same time make it easier for players, other than adding more tutorials and adding an easier tutorial. Outside of that, I don't want to change the actual. I don't want to make the actual core gameplay easier, if that makes sense.
I think building a deck before chapter 3 would have helped the game a lot, because
Yeah, that is
part of
true.
the fun of this game is the creativity in your strategies, and you want to see them come out and play. And it takes you 3 chapters to even get to the beginning of that, in what we know Phantom Dust as right now. And it's one of the biggest hurdles, I think, to getting new players to play, because it's okay, like the first chapter or whatever, a little bit, but you don't really get a sense of what the game could actually be in the beginning.
I think also, and I agree with your point 100%. I think also that a lot of people these days, especially like the younger audience that is like the new generation getting into games, don't care for the single player as much anymore. Like
Yeah, yeah.
most of the big games these days aren't story driven. And if that's where you have to go for the introduction to the game, you lose so many of those people. Just like you said, they hop in quick, they don't know how to use aura, they refuse to play the single player because almost all the big popular stuff these days, the single player, if it exists at all, is kind of like an icing on the cake. If you look at like Call of Duty or League of Legends, doesn't even have single player but has some lore. It's all tertiary, and I think if we had a quick and dirty multiplayer intro that was some on-screen promptings that taught you how to use aura, taught you how to use a shield, gave you a flame sword, and let you go nuts, that it could maybe keep so many more players. However, that's outside of the scope of what they could have done in the re-release. But for a sequel, if it were to ever happen, I think they could do something and make that a much better experience, because right now it's just such a big, steep curve to really get into the game.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They just need an easier, a better way to teach people how to play without changing, without dumbing down, for lack of a better term, the core gameplay.
Maybe like incentives to do some of the tutorials could be helpful. Like, oh, if you do this tutorial, we'll give you X amount of skills to play around with even more. This way, people learn stuff and they also get to unlock things, and that's always appealing as well to
Loot
players.
boxes.
I think they also just need to make things more available more quickly. Like give us the skills online. Maybe don't gate us on credits and things like that as much. Just make it available. Let people dive in, not having to wait until chapter 3 to build an arsenal, like you said. Things like that. Let it start early. Let people get
Yeah.
started early. Because even in the single player, I remember it's not until like chapter 8 that you can get a freaking heat. Like you can barely really build a deck other than this has Blaster and Psycho Shell until
That sounds like
almost
a good deck
endgame.
right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really get past something that basic until almost endgame. You can't build an
Learn
erase
to
deck. You
Blaster.
can't build a big damage deck. So
And maybe some pre-constructed decks could be given to people starting out.
I think they do that already, don't they? Well, they give you the skills, but not the actual decks. Yeah, you're
kind
right. You're
of,
right.
yeah. I think that could definitely be
Yeah, that's
expanded
a good
on.
idea. I like that.
All right, let's go down. We asked about the story again, talking about the thoughts and takeaways from the story modes ending. Why don't you go ahead and read that one for us, Murder?
It turned out that after we struggled in various ways about the ending, this was also true for Dragoon Saga, but I like to leave a glimmer of hope in a world that is heading for destruction, which is why it ended the way it did.
Now, this was actually one of the ones that I thought was just really interesting because you look at the end of Phantom Dust, and for those of us who've played multiplayer for who knows how long without replaying the single player, from what I remember, Edgar was actually dead, and there's that whole deal. The Edgar you'd been fighting was just a copy, and everybody's a copy of that dude's imagination, and your alpha character kind of like walks off into the sunset, and it's like, well, can he reform the world, or is it all just going to be like, nope, we're all just imaginations and we're going to fade? And I think I always looked at it as a pretty dark future. Like, I don't know if this universe is going to survive, but it's interesting to note that the way he viewed it was that there is some hope in a world that's on such a train wreck at the time. What do you guys
I mean,
think?
it's kind of a bummer for the protagonist to find this all out, but I, I don't know why I'm touching on this point. I thought it was interesting that Edgar finds out the truth. Well, his copy finds out the truth, and he can't handle it, but the protagonist is able to handle it, and it kind of makes you wonder: does the real Edgar hold the protagonist in a stronger light than even his own self?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting too. And also, Freya never really handles it either. And those are the three he really put the work into: was himself, the protagonist, and Freya. Obviously, the final boss is called Demented Freya, so she didn't do so hot with the whole deal either. And I guess it just shows, I don't know, good old anime power of friendship. I'm not sure.
I'm also a little biased about the whether it's really a hopeful ending or not. Going by some of the debug missions that never, got put out in the game. I've played some of them. You can actually see them on a guide site. They had more missions, a few more of them, and it kind of continued some of the plot line. Like you're still like chasing after Cuff Button, and Noah is trying to find Maniac at one point, and there's even like a dying sisters battle. So because I know
I did
those
not know that.
missions were not put in the game but are available through the debug mode, it does make you feel like, okay, they wanted this world to keep going.
Yeah, yeah, that was, I guess the implication is that he's supposed to keep going, but it does seem pretty bleak. Like, literally anyone he tells what the real deal is just going to poof.
It seems like Subutaki might be able to handle it. Like one of the missions you finish with her, she's like, even if I know the truth, I wish I could remember the other part of it, but she was kind of saying like, even if I knew the truth, I feel like I would still be alive.
I don't know, that chick couldn't even handle hanging out in town without having a breakdown.
Yeah. Ultimate
Well,
emo.
Maybe for story reasons. Who knows?
well, I think she says that on the sane mission, so people can judge whether whose view is really correct or not on that.
I just like to also shout out that Subutaki was like the worst partner. Like, let me
Yeah,
just go
she
use
fired
Hell's
Gahan.
Fire and immediately kill myself without hitting anything.
It was like playing with Kanye. You know, he had shot Fire Gahan until he
He
died.
stole my joke.
I know. I knew you were going there, and I had to take it from you. So there you go. No yucks for you.
Kanye Fire Gehenna himself right out of the community.
What's even funnier is he like probably is listening right now because he still keeps up with our stuff. So Kanye, if you're out there, go fuck yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done with that. I still talk to Kanye. I'm just fucking with him. I still talk to Kanye.
Really? Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. It's not the purpose of tonight's podcast. We'll talk about that later. We got 2 more to run through, and then we'll wrap things up. Let's hit number 10.
What would you do differently if you had a chance to make Phantom Dust again? Well, I think I would want to change the art style a little. I think that now there are better ways for greater expression of the skills. That would be cool.
So does
Yeah.
protagonist get a shirt?
Nope.
Or has he still got a belt
shirtless
shirt?
anime.
He's not
protagonist,
shirtless.
yeah.
He's got belts, okay?
So you need to be able to see his chest. That's the big thing.
He's
with
got
anime.
tactical belts that cover, sensitive areas.
Yeah, like there's none of the skills in the game are overly flashy, right? Like even the expensive ones, they're the big heavy hitting one, like Dance of Death. It honestly doesn't look that flashy. I think if they remade the game now, especially to help sell it, all the skills would look insane just to make it more appealing to the eye.
Oh yeah, stuff like Dance of Death and Psycho Burst should have like way cooler animations.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like Photon Burst that's already fairly cool could be 10 times cooler. I think Mines could be amazing.
And Finisher, like for what Finisher does, it should have a mini cutscene or something.
Yeah, here's like
Come on now.
a flying red and purple dildo. That's it. Finisher.
And it hits you for 100 or 99. It's a powerful one right
well, and
there.
imagine some of the others, like the nature swords. I think would be amazing too.
Yeah.
Like I think those could look really cool. Lightning.
Maybe one
Can
of
you
the-
imagine like a lightning sword made in 2020? That would be
Yeah,
sick.
that'd be so awesome. I would love to see that. I would like it where it scales. So like bullet of fire or laser, it's 1 for 1. It looks like a laser, but then you get to like vibration laser, which requires you, which is obviously more powerful. Put a little more flair on it. I think that would be cool.
It's
Do you think
purple.
it
Is that
might
not good enough for
telegraph-
you? You want more than just a recolor?
Yeah, I do actually. I do.
Do you think like updated graphics might like telegraph moves too easily though? That
I was
could
actually
be
honestly
part of the
just thinking of
challenge.
that while we were talking, and it depends on how far they went with it, but
I think there's definitely a balance that
I-
could be found.
yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is like bullet of fire doesn't even look like a fireball. It just looks like red coming at you. Like I would like to just see some flames on it, so. But that's just,
Yeah.
it's 2020
You aren't
now.
impressed with the potato falling from the sky?
Yeah, that's exactly what mini meteor is. Literally just a potato coming at you.
Mini-
It's supposed to be a meteor you summon
Mini
from
meteor
the sky.
is like the mini potatoes, like those little petite ones that you buy in the expensive bags, while meteor is like the russet potato.
I think L-bomb needs to explode on contact.
Yeah, stuff like that. That'd be sweet.
Dude, imagine Bomb Shot with updated graphics. People would actually run Bomb Shot. Or Impact
And-
Burst. My goodness, Impact Burst could be amazing. It already is amazing.
Yeah, about to say it already is. You leave
Ima-
Impact Burst alone.
Imagine all the debris flying though, updated graphics with impact burst. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be
If
crazy.
they updated it so debris actually shows up when it hits you, would be cool. Because right now you just you see it and then it's like 3 seconds later, nothing is next to you and you take 8 damage. Like there was nothing next to me. Xbox record that. There was nothing.
Yeah, some people even take 8 damage in the 5th game of tournament finals from a sign that doesn't exist. It's happened.
I know those people should not play City.
It wasn't my map pick.
I know, that's what makes it even better. uh,
It's interesting though the art style that he's changing. Unfortunately, when they re-released the game, that was one of the things I saw getting a lot of criticism. People making fun of the art style or the graphics. There were
I mean, the
complaints about it
protagonist wears
not
belt
being
shirts, so there's
you mean
some
for
fun
the?
to be
Are you talking
poked.
about for the re-release or for the
the
sequel gameplay thing they had?
no the re-release of the game.
Oh, yeah,
Unfortunately, even though there was updated graphics, a lot of people just still were
yeah.
too
I
close-minded. I felt. Um,
yeah,
something.
I feel the same way. Where people just instantly try to shrug it off because the graphics were dated. Like every time I try to show people the game, they're like, "These graphics look old." I'm like, "Dude, the game came out in 2004." Like, and it's not ugly. It's just a little dated. But they don't want to play just because of that.
Well, the art style
Yeah,
can be pretty off-putting too. There are a lot of people that put a lot of stock into that. They see it and they just see an art style and they're like, "Nah, it's not for me." It just looks a little too whack. Suddenly there's going to be tentacles, and I'm not into that. And I
well,
can see that. For me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the art style. Uh,
I feel like
However, I love the game.
the art style does because it is a Japanese game. It's a card game, and so typically, if you like anime, you like card games, right? So I feel like they're trying to attract the audience who would play their game for the most part. I could be wrong there
I
though.
guess. However, I'm neither of those. I don't like the
You're
art
both.
style, and I don't generally get into those kind of things either. So
I'm
I
saying
guess
for
I'm the weird
everyone.
one.
You are weird, but I'm just saying it's like throwing a net, right? So
I mean, maybe more character customization could let both art styles flourish. So
character
someone,
customization would be awesome
Well, I think a sequel, like
because
obviously the big thing in almost every multiplayer game these days is skins. Like,
yeah,
can you imagine like
Chunky
NFL
Chunky needs a
JD?
flat brim hat.
How about NFL player JD comes in, uses pursuit and curb stomps on people with both feet? It's like spiking the ball on people. I
That's
think
the
the other
only
thing would
reason to play
be
JD.
I think the other thing that would be fun is like emotes and stuff like that for a sequel.
oh, imagine taunting people that you
Yeah, I'm
just
about to
pop
say
their ass capsule.
so that way certain people, I'm not gonna name any names, get upset when you taunt on their bodies or throw fortresses over them.
Dude, could
And
you
now you can
imagine
literally
like
just taunt.
I'm running with it. NFL JD runs up and spikes the ball on somebody who's dead. Just spikes it right on their face. It'd be amazing. Or like Apex style like executions would be hilarious.
Yeah, some people they wanted the game to be 60 frames per second too. So I don't know if you have to get that audience on board with it too. But it's an older game, and I think they did a good job with what they had.
The remaster was absolutely done very well. For what time, budget, and what they had the means to work with, I think they did a fantastic job. As far as the sequel goes, there's so much I would love to see, including NFL JD.
Mainly NFL JD.
Let's be honest, 90% of what I want to see is NFL JD.
If I can put 100 belts on my character, then that would be good.
You know what would make protagonists better? More belts.
All right, we got
Yeah.
one more question.
Let's hit the last one. Go for it.
Is there a genre you've wanted to explore in making games but have never had the chance to? Namco has put out an original sports-themed game called Wrestle Ball for Mega Drive Genesis, which I like, but I would like to create a game where I create original sport rules, but I just haven't had the chance yet.
Was anybody familiar with this one, or did they look it up? Because I forgot to look it up.
Yeah, I
Wrestle
looked it up.
Sandal in here saving us.
I know, scrubs.
So I think in America the game might actually be called Powerball, but it might be referred to as Wrestle Ball in Europe for all I know. But anyway, the game is like it's kind of like they say it's like a mix of soccer and rugby, but it looks like it's kind of like a futuristic game, and you have two options. One, can like you can throw a ball around. Like there's a ball you score points with. You can either get it like a touchdown or just shoot it into a goal, like a soccer goal. And one of the other things you can do in the game is from what I was able to see, is there's like a lot of tackling. So this is all like in real time. You don't stop in the middle of it like in football. So everyone's kind of tackling each other, and you can throw the ball around, and so it's kind of like a mix of soccer and football from my knowledge. And there's a few different versions of the game, but one of the things I thought was hilarious, you'd probably find it as one of the first results on YouTube. It's like a 12-minute video. Whenever your team scores a goal, the guy who scores the goal, the rest of the team just dives on top of and tackles.
This was for the Genesis.
Yeah, yes. It's not the greatest graphics in the world, but it's still pretty funny to watch the guy like score a goal and the rest of his team everyone just dog piles on top of him.
I just think it's cool that we got such a unique answer out of him, looking to create a completely original sports game. What do you think? Like, how well would that be received? Like, has there been other games really like that? Because obviously he's using a super old example. Can you think of another game that is like a sports game but a fake sport?
They have I really like Baseball 2020, the arcade version,
Isn't that still
where
baseball though, which is a
yeah, it
sport?
kind of is. But you also have robots in the game, and you can blow them up if you hit them with a ball enough times. And I don't know if people remember Base Wars back in the old Nintendo days. It plays like baseball, but let's say someone's about to tag you out. Instead of tagging you out, the game cuts to a side-by-side screen where you're two robots, and you try to kill each other, and whoever wins that uh, battle is either safe or out.
That is the goofiest thing I've ever heard, but okay.
That's pretty well. Have you ever seen anything like that, Murder, or what do you think the
uh,
reception of a game like that would be?
Not well, honestly, but I also can't think of any other game like that. I've been trying to think. I can't think of any made up
I
sports
can't
game.
either, and honestly, I'm not sure if it would be something that I would be personally interested in.
Yeah, same. Maybe that I'm looking at from my like I'm not
We
big of a sports
however
person
are
already.
a unique bunch, still following a 15-year-old Japanese card game. So, who are we to be judges of what's good and what's not when it comes to video games at this point?
Elitist. That's what we are.
It kind of
Elitist.
speaks to what he does though with
Epicurean
his game
tastes.
designs. Like, who decided, okay, I'm gonna take a CCG game, trading card game, and now we're gonna put it in live action, but you still have a deck that you have to build.
I think
So
that's genius. That's just
I think it was
smart.
absolutely genius. It's like getting real time, almost like wizard combat or something, except for you can also blow up their stuff and hit them with a sword. It's great.
yeah, well, I wasn't sold on the idea when I read about it, and my sister was the one who actually got me into playing it. So, uh, you know,
Is that the
I was sold on the
notorious
idea
Melinda
of
Gates?
what?
Was that the notorious Melinda Gates?
No, she didn't like playing the game much online.
What were you saying, Murder?
I was just saying I was sold on the game when it was $20 and I was a teenager and poor. So I was like a
I only
$20 game, all right. That's why I got
I only paid $10 for it. That's how stingy it was for me.
it.
I had a buddy of mine in high school that liked it. I have no idea how he originally found it. I remember I did play the teaser for it in the Xbox magazine back in the day, but I just had a friend that he was like, "Yeah, you should get this game. It's fun," and I got it, and I'm still here 15 years later. I don't know what happened. Well,
Oh man, one of the crazy game. This was an original idea for an arcade game. I can't remember the name. I'll post it or whatever on the forums. But the idea, it was kind of like the game looked like American Gladiators, but they called it Crazy Football. And instead of doing anything with a football, you had a gun and you were just shooting everything up, and these pinballs would bounce around and blow stuff up too. I think there's a lot of crazy arcade sports games people should check out because they're pretty fun ideas out there, even if they sound as crazy as an
They
idea
do
like
sound crazy.
a live action trading game fighting out in real time mode.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you again to Yukio for granting us the interview. We're all very grateful for the game that you made and for your crazy mind that managed to put this all together. Truly is a game that has transcended its time and shown that it has some real lasting power, even if it's among a niche community. Anybody have any last thoughts or anything they want to say?
I think
Nothing
you
from
put
me.
it best.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here, and we'll see you guys in the draft tournament. Take care.